media, usually companies and even production companies do not use 3D animation because it's actually time consuming and it's needs more budget. And sometimes people just asking why you are not using 3D animation for commercial. That's because actually it needs more time and more money to create, but the result can be the same as you can get with the 2D animation. So sometimes this budgeting helping you to understand also, are you actually need to create this kind of content, or you can get the same goal, achieving the same goal with less budget and with less time spending on this.
Yeah, I always find that clients get surprised by budgeting. I always say it has to come from the client in terms of budget. As a business, you should know how much budget you have set aside for marketing. Now, if you're approaching an agency like any of ours, then we can advise you by building a strategy and telling you, how you could split that budget up, but you have to have that number in mind. So as part of building your business strategy, and we talk about this at the start, is aligning your business strategy objectives in line with your marketing strategies. How are you going to achieve that and what's it going to cost? If your objective as a business is to increase revenue by X, then how much are you willing to spend to increase that revenue by X that year or over the next, 6 to 12 months? So it all comes down to, understanding your internal financials and, what that looks like. Part of the strategy in terms of as we go through that whole process is once you understood your audiences, once you understood right what type of content like video to build, it always comes down to then understanding right how to make best use of that budget. Because once we know who your audience are and start profiling them, whether you're an existing, you've been running for years and you have a good idea of who your audiences is, or we're helping you understand who your audience is, or you're a complete new client to the market, then that helps identify specific channels where you can start exploring within digital to maximize your budget with different elements. I feel like a lot of clients think they can do everything across digital, and it is quite cheap. And digital overall is a cheap platform however, if you're a national company and you've got a limited budget, you're not going to get national reach, if you have a small budget. But if you're a local business and you have a good budget, then you can make good inroads just geographically in terms of what you want to achieve.
Yeah, just wanted to add that when we are talking about budget, it's not only about the production, let's say charges. You need to always consider about paid video ads too, and not only about videos for any content, because sometimes just organic content is not enough. So when you are creating your budget, think about the paid media too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's one of those where if I could give advice to anyone, as much as they may not know, or anyone listening, you may not know how much something should cost, you ultimately know what pot of money you have to get started with. And for an agency to best advise you on where to allocate that budget, we need to know that number. Ultimately, I think as well, there's maybe a bit of a misconception around agencies making loads of money, but actually a lot of the spend goes towards the advertising spend, which is soaked up by Google, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, or anywhere else that you choose to advertise. And that will always be the most expensive cost over, for example, agency fees is going to be that advertising spend. But for us to best advise where you can spend your money and see the best return, it's always good to get that indicator. And if you are looking at seeking some external help with regards to your marketing strategy and implementation of a plan, it is always good to have even if it's starting out, I've got this amount of money now. However, in 3 months' time, once the activity's run, if I see a return, then I'm prepared to invest more in, then that's absolutely fine. And that's something we always encourage in the conversations we have with people is let's get started with something that you're going to see results from straight away. And once you see the results, let's discuss reinvesting the return you've made into other platforms. And I think that goes across the board with or without working with an agency when it comes to deciding on your plan, is going, where are you going to invest first. What is your initial objective versus your long-term objective as a business? So initially you may be looking for awareness, going back to what you were saying earlier, Anush, actually right now we need awareness of our brand, so we need to get in front of as many people as possible. And the metrics we're going to use to measure that are going to be about impressions and reach. However, over the course of a year, our wider objective is a financial one, how much we want to turn over, and, looking at how you can convert impressions into clicks, into conversions, into customers, and that's why things like that AIDA model helps, because that kind of aligns with that. So going from awareness of we're making a lot of people know who you are, to interest. People are intrigued, they're clicking through, they're interacting, they're playing a video for longer, whatever it may be. They have a desire, so they're contacting you. Then at the end, action, they've placed an order, they've become a customer, for example. So it really is about initially us focusing on what are we doing to raise awareness and get some initial traction for you. And we do often find, it will be similar channels that may help in those early stages. So for example, paid search or paid social or video, because there are other elements certainly that we do as an agency, such as search engine optimization, that we say to people, if you've only got a small amount of budget and you've only got 2-3 months to spend it, SEO should be considered as a long-term strategy. So let's instead look at some short-term wins for you, that will see results. And so as much as you may want to think, I want to do everything, I want to do it all, let's really think about how doing it all fits into a 12-month strategy, but let's break it down into quarter by quarter and what we're doing in the first 3 months. So anyone listening to this and going, where do I start? How am I going to have to find my audience? What do I do next? Understanding what budget you have available to then know which platform you can invest in, but invest in one and get it right and get it working really well for you. And then you will see a return that will give you a larger budget for the rest of the year to invest more and grow your business.
Just to bring it back then maybe a step, when we're talking about budget, what about like their online presence? Because what I always find with businesses is part of the strategy is it's not just, it's understanding your audiences, it's putting a budget in place, it's identifying channels, but remember, you're going to be, as businesses, driving traffic to an online website, an online particular lead gen form or data capture element. So you need to make sure that these platforms that you're working with and your websites are well geared and optimized to convert. Having a website that isn't mobile optimized, for example, is not going to help. So part of your strategy, and the first thing that we do here at Bobble is, we also look at, the online presence, how do their social pages look, if they are relevant on social pages, if they have them set up. Sometimes we come across clients that say we want to do LinkedIn advertising, but they don't even have a LinkedIn company page. So that's one element to kind of look at. It's, how active are they across, their Facebook, their Instagram, if they want to do social ads, and if that's the budget that's gone into it. There are many elements to kind of consider in terms of the online presence, but the key element being the website. The content on that web page where you'll be driving people to get more information about your product or service is going to be very, very key. And it directly links back to the platforms you use. For example, if you're doing pay-per-click advertising, you want to make sure that the keywords or the text within your text ad and the keyword is also resemble in some form on your landing page to improve your ad quality scores. If you're doing, if you're selling products, then, your product landing page needs to be well optimized to be able to run, Google shopping campaigns, to be able to identify what that product is within the header. There are a lot of elements to consider, and that same when we're talking about content, whether it's video, because video could then be placed on that site. You could then have a teaser video that gives them some insight to an answer or a question they have, and then drive them to that particular landing page where the full video would be present. I feel like, that same tone of voice needs to transpire in terms of messaging and content all the way through the process from ad to website. So I'd say just before that, the first part of the budget I always look at is, does anything need to be doing with the website, or do we need to spend time optimizing, updating the social pages if we're going to be pushing ads from there.
Yeah, and that's such a good point, because we often find that people will go, I've done the website myself to save money. I've just put that together, and then now I've got this budget to do it. And you go, okay, let's go a couple of steps backwards here and look at the website, and actually, is it fit for purpose? And yeah, rightly so. A lot of the time it's not, when looking at it in terms of it being a lead generation page on the back of an ad or whatever it may be. And that's something we will sometimes do with clients, is go, let's take your 3-month initial budget that you wanted to spend on advertising or something, and create a budget for redoing your website or changing your website to get it up to scratch, because that is a place a lot of people will cut corners. So go, I've done that, and now I'll work with you to start advertising. But actually it all comes down to that main source of your online presence. Your website is your digital shop front, and you wouldn't just set up a shop without merchandising it and doing your window displays and doing whatever and expect people to come in and buy from you. So the same goes with your website and your online presence. So yeah, that is such a key area that a lot of people do cut corners with, but is worth the investment.
When it comes to video, it's not only, when we are creating a video marketing strategy, it's not only about like the target audience, goal, and budgeting, because sometimes you can have all these ready, but didn't understand at the end which kind of, like, what type of video I should use for that. Because it's also so important to explore video industry, to understand which formats they are, which types you need to use in which cases, to understand the style, you're connected with your brand, and of course, the most important, having a compelling story. Because if you don't have all these together, which is need to be based on the video marketing strategy, of course, but if you don't have these, like having just strategy by itself will not work. So basically, start exploring video types, start exploring the formats. For example, animated videos nowadays are a really good way to explain ideas, to just engage people, but it's not working for seniors. I mean, if your target audience is B2B clients plus 60 years old, don't use animations, even if they are so cute and really amazing and engaging. So this is just a way of understanding which type to use. And content we are putting, let's say, in video marketing strategy as one of the main and important things to consider when you are creating. Of course, we need to think about also optimization of your video, because when it comes to YouTube, you just can't put your video online and just sit down and wait, okay, my video will work actually. But you need to also optimize it. By optimizing, I mean having a compelling title, headline, thumbnail, which encourage right people to actually want to watch your video. And optimization, we actually dividing into two parts. It's audience optimization and algorithm optimization, which actually one, let's say, adding to another, because when you have your audience optimization ready, you know actually which kind of titles to put to engage the right audience. It is leading to have really good algorithm optimization, which is shortly said is a piece of video content that will be seen first or to whom. So basically, it's also so important to optimize video. And remember that it is changing during the time, and for different companies it's working in a different ways, so you need to work on this and find the one that works for you actually.
And I think, on what you were saying earlier, it comes down to that messaging piece around what your messaging should be. And something I say a lot to people is there's a difference between what you want to say about your business versus what people want to hear about it. And I think there's a really big disconnect there, in that, a business will be like, I want to talk about our mission statement and our values and our people and all these things about themselves. But what is it important for your customer to know? How are you helping them with your product or service? What pain points are you answering for them? And we do a piece around content, if we're ever writing website content for someone or potentially doing social media content, where we work through,